Hello and welcome to the show. I'm David Dadakian, and with me today is Georgina Sarpong with Abundance Farm and many other things that I've known Georgina about over the years. Thank you for joining me today, Georgina.
Well, thank you for having me on.
Pleasure having you. So yeah, I like to start every episode with you just telling the folks how did you get to where you are today? Where'd you grow up? What's your background, your family, things of that nature?
Yes. So I am from Providence, Rhode Island. I was raised here. My parents are from West Africa. They came for school on a scholarship, and they ended up staying. They landed in South Dakota. Don't ask.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, because that's where the scholarship was from. And then after that, we moved to Rhode Island because a lot of our family members relocated to Rhode Island, I think because it's closer to New York, but they didn't want to stay in that fast paced area. And I think after a number of years, I'm not sure how familiar you are with like the Liberian community or any other West African community, but after a number of years, that community have grown in Rhode Island. And then from there, I went to all of the Providence schools. I mean, when I say all, meaning like in each level, from elementary to high school and college. I started off, after graduating from high school, I started off at URI. I thought I wanted to, become a diplomat. I studied poli-sci, learned very quick that wasn't for me. And I had more of an interest in food and community and all of that. So then I transferred over to Johnson & Wales after I had my daughter. And when that happened, it was like the best thing. I think that was like one of the best decisions I've ever made. I got into the culinary program, did that, finished, and then I went on to work for other establishments. I started off at the lowest position as a dishwasher at More Than a Meal Catering with Amos House. And I also worked at the Cobb as a prep. And then with those two jobs, worked my way up to the line. And then for More Than a Meal Catering with Amos House, I became one of their chefs there. Then I moved on and started working for the Jewish Alliance. I developed their food service program for their early child care, their youth program, their senior program, and their special events. So we used to do a lot of catering through that. Yeah. Then I went off and branched off on my own. I had a catering company for about five to 6 years, which the name was Layers of Taste at the time. Then I worked for Farm Fresh Rhode Island.
Right, that's where I first met you. Yeah.
That's where we connected. And I started there as a farmers markets program manager, which entailed managing all the Farm Fresh's markets and the initiatives in supporting all farmers markets in the state, along with supporting local farmers just in general through all of their programming and initiatives that they have going on. So I was with them for almost 5 years. Yeah. And then I realized that with working with Farm Fresh and doing a bunch of cool things, I noticed that our food industry, from farming to culinary or food service rather, lacked technology, because working at Farm Fresh, like, we was developing on the go, especially we all are always trying to find effective ways to make things faster and much more thorough.
Right.
And it wasn't just a problem at Farm Fresh or other organizations. I think just an industry standard, it's an issue. So I found myself doing a lot of development work on the side, and also how I could bring that back to my current position, because then I kind of vertically went into a role as a food service manager for HK, which entailed helping the new build out of the building that still stands, and program development as well with the youth that they serve.
And that's for people who don't know, HK is Harvest Kitchen.
Harvest Kitchen, sorry, the acronym is like. And so then from there, I really grew an interest in technology and how it would, if you had more folks from the food world going into that field, like the merge would be great. So that was what was playing in my mind. And then I transitioned into software development. So I left Farm Fresh for that reason. And I started school all over again. I'm currently at Career Devs, which is an accelerated software engineering program. And I am also currently a creative technologist fellow at RISD Museum.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic.
Yeah. So that's where that led me to. But the cool thing about it is that I'm still, developing stuff purposely for micro small farmers or something related to food service. So that's where I'm at now. And right. I currently just, along with my partner, Quincy, opened a small community farm here on the west end of Providence, which is 135 Parade Street for anyone that lives in the area. We're currently just, cleaning up the space, transferring all of our starters because we're using the same code for our greenhouse, and doing all the fun things that urban farming comes with. And this is our first season. And again, it allows me to create like a tech piece to it. So we're working on some programming with that. But overall, I just think this season we're just getting familiar with the space because we were community gardeners in that space for about 5 years, sharing with other community members, but it went dormant. A lot of people moved out of the community, just the natural transition of life. So we ended up asking Westwood Housing, who owns the space, if we can lease it from them to create something for the community, and they granted that, and that's what we've been doing.
I was going to say, before everything revolves around food, though. You've so kept into that and integrated into so many different aspects. It's wonderful. Clearly that's my passion as well. So it's so amazing to see. But I want to talk about some of these other organizations that you mentioned the way, because they're extremely vital and important to our community and what's going on here. Let's start with Amos House, because I don't think a lot of people know about More Than a Meal.
Right.
So how long's that been? Do you know how long that's been? You were there for how long?
I was with More Than a Meal for about, I want to say 3.5 years. Yes, 3.5 years.
And was that the start of the catering program when you were there, or that was because that's?
No, it wasn't the start. It was like probably around 5 years in. So I think the group of us that came in after was like the second set of staff for that. Yeah.
I mean, and they cater anything. I mean, that's really...
Yeah, they cater anything and everywhere. And we would... Our team from More Than a Meal was heavily involved in the Friendship Cafe, the development for that. I don't know if you remember that. So we were the staff that, yes, we handled the operations and all of the creative pieces to the catering, but we also joined in with Miss Eileen and other influential folks at Amos House to really get that project going.
Yeah, the Friendship Cafe was a great little spot.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember the name of the place that's there now. I think there's a Dominican place there now.
Punta Cana.
Yes, Punta Cana. Yes, I've been in there. I've only been once, but it was really nice. But it's a great location.
Right.
But as I say, the work of Amos House in general is extremely vital and important. So it's nice to have it supplemented by this catering arm that like I said, anyone can hire out. It's a great catering group. And I've actually had a meal there at Amos House, which was really impressive.
And the mission is amazing because we cater everywhere for anyone. But the mission itself, like with Amos House, and then having that social enterprise of the catering company to still service the mission,
Right.
which is to help, people in the community, especially if they are trying to get back on their feet or find their way. And we, at the time, way before the new building, we was at Crossroads and using their kitchen. So that's where the partnership came in.
That's right.
So we used to also cater to Crossroads, give out the dinners and the breakfast and things like that.
Yeah, no, I'd forgotten about that before the new building. Which is really beautiful. That area really is amazing to see the growth. I mean, one of the organizations you didn't work with, but because you've worked with so many, is Southside, which is right over there as well. Southside,
right?
And they're doing great work with the urban farming there, but also. I don't know if you know they bought that building. It's not far from.
Right on
around the corner from Amos House. I'm trying to think what street it's on.
Blackstone, I think. Blackstone and Broad.
I just know the U-Haul shop.
Yeah, the U-Haul shop is right there. Yeah, Southside is another great organization. I'm definitely working with them a lot now because I have my space.
Yep.
And Jashandra and Andrew and Margaret, they've all been very helpful and resourceful in getting us going, giving us a ton of resources on what to do, what not to do, and kind of, they're looking for our success because our success is everyone's success. So I really appreciate them for that.
And they must, I don't know if it's a partnership or however it works, but they must sell product from folks that raise outside of their community, outside of that Southside community, as well as the West Elmwood, the Sankofa market as well, I would say.
And so we are on Sankofa grounds. That is another, while working at Farm Fresh, that was another initiative that I was definitely a part of. I was on West Elmwood Housing Board for 3 years. And prior to that, because I live in one of their, properties, I was introduced to the whole Sankofa project and agriculture and living, how that would work. So again, because Rhode Island province is so small, so the food industry is even smaller. So, we all get the chance to work with all these amazing people to see things come up. And Sankofa was probably one of the biggest project with the smallest team where I learned the most about everything from housing to policy to how that has a huge impact with food in any way. So that was definitely a great experience too.
Yeah, Sankofa is an amazing initiative. But I mean, West Elmwood in general is, like you said, it touches so many different things. It's I've intersected it with all different areas over the years, from growing to the markets to anything in food related. Mm-hmm. It's plus there's that whole the housing side of it that I don't know as well, but they've done great work over there in growing that area with the build out and everything. Yeah. So do you so you farm on Parade Street like you mentioned? What are you raising? How's it looking like this season?
I'm definitely making all of the first-time farmers' mistakes. No matter how much you watch or talk to other farmers and read books, it's like, what the heck? But this year we're growing a lot of collard greens, kale, peppers, a ton of peppers. This leaf called jute leaf, which is very popular in the Liberian community, as far as one of the dishes that they prepare with. Sweet potatoes, the greens to the sweet potatoes, which is rich, which is really big in the West African community, along with eggplants, melons, watermelons, and salad mix. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, the sweet potato greens. It's funny you mentioned that. I wasn't familiar with that as an ingredient until learning probably from either Sankofa Market or maybe Julius in conversation.
Yeah, Julius.
I've always had a wonderful conversation with him over the years. So it's I know there's this speaking of Julius, what the African Alliance tries to do in farm as well is trying to grow more things that are indigenous to West Africa, for the communities here? Do you find that easily done? Do some things grow better than others, or?
Right now, well, as far as yield, the greens are your best friends because you get more yield out of the greens. And of course, when you harvest and you're not harvesting the root, you're going to get a second and third run on it. Whereas some things like bitter ball, which is in the tamale tomato family, I would say it's great, but depending on the seed, your yield might be great or it might not be as great. But it is a popular, it's a popular fruit. Well, vegetable, but I say fruit because I season it, but to the community. So it's important to grow. A lot of the women from African Alliance do grow all of these things that I mentioned, and they are perfect at it. They've been doing it since they were like 5 years old. I consider them as elders, so they've been teaching me a lot. There's like, your generation needs to learn patience and to, really go by like the moon and all these different things, and I'm just like, I just want to grow. But it's been a great learning experience so far. And my partner, which is my spouse Quincy, he's very handy with his hands. He works in construction, so like building out new beds, building this, building that. He does it with his eyes closed. And also when he lived in Liberia, his family are farmers, so he had a lot of those techniques down packed. So for him is like hard because we're in a very small space. He's used to like acreage and
Sure.
And he's like, how we like it's like foreign to him that we're like using this little lot to do so much. But again, we're learning so far in the first season, like just how to be organized and how to time things in its growing season. So certain things can come out together, and then your next sell, other products can come out together. So we've been trying to figure that piece out. Mm-hmm.
And where are you selling these products?
So we'll be selling it right in front of the space itself, which it would then be considered 392 Cranston Street, because where the lot sit is 392 Cranston Street, 135 Parade Street.
Okay.
And that lot is right there.
Nice. Are you doing any farmers markets or not yet, or?
Not yet, because I was, a part of that world for a long time. I know how much it takes. Yeah, I know how much it takes, and I know how hard all of the farmers and food business owners work to prepare for that. And I, for the first year anyway, will love to just see how I get my feet wet, practice my selling and my setup. And so hopefully the next season we can participate in different markets.
Right. I mean, at the very least, the Armory one's right there. So that might be a convenient one to be able to get to without having to, trek all over the place.
All over the place. Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, so you mentioned Quincy coming from acreage in Liberia. Do you look at any other farmland out here in Rhode Island? Have you thought about that yet, or you're still just thinking?
We're still, one lot at a time. Because the big dream before starting was like, we're gonna have like this amount of acres, and we're gonna do all these things, and still a part of the plan. But now my plan has been reality. Like, okay, let's master this small area and then see how much you can really get out of it, and then look at other places.
Is it all, I assume it's all raised bed?
It's all raised bed because we took over a community garden.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, lots of possibilities.
Right.
And so far, at least, the weather seems to be cooperating this year. I know last year was a wet one, but this year seems to be a little better.
Right. I was a little concerned too, especially with working with a lot of the women from the Alliance, because it was like very cold. Like we had like this really cold time, probably a few weeks ago, and they were very concerned because, they're like, it's a cold year. I'm like, well, we in Rhode Island, I mean, if we all pay attention, we go from winter to summer, there's no spring.
Yeah.
So I'm happy that the transition had finally happened. But there was a little bit of a concern. They were like, I don't know about this year. I'm like, this is my first time. Please don't make me cry. It was like, well, just hope for the best. I'm like, is that it?
I mean, reality-wise, unfortunately, weather is hope for the best. I know that is the
Right.
thing. Though it seems the growing season is getting longer in the fall too now.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I mean, climate-wise, it has to be a lot different for them.
Yes, it's very different, but I think they've adapted very well in what they know they can grow and grow successfully,
Sure.
and things that, because the season is extending into the fall, what they can lay out later. So that's something that they expressed to me that, obviously, coming from a hot, dry heat area where you can like grow many more things any time of year, and then coming to a state or an area in the U.S. where you get all 4 seasons. It was hard. One lady expressed that when she first started, things were dying and she knew it wasn't her. She just had to adapt to the climate. So they've mastered that too.
That's a very good point. Is there adaptation with ingredients as well? Because I think about other friends of mine that come from different parts of the world that want certain ingredients and they can't get them here, or they can't grow them here. And they'll substitute, and then they say it's not really the same, but but is that easier to do with some of the ingredients, or harder, or
I think right now the classic things we can grow, or there's some kind of accessibility to it, to finding the ingredient.
Okay.
Other items, no, we don't even try. I mean, unless you're in a warmer place like Southern Florida,
okay,
Virginia, and which is interesting because in that space there is a huge, in the Virginia DMV area there are like bigger West African populations, but the food world is not as strong as up here.
That's just what I was going to ask. I know, we're very fortunate here to have so many different places making so many different types of food.
Right.
But I have to assume that, like you said, a group settled here. There must be other pockets around the country, but they don't have that type of food community, maybe?
No, and I think because we lucked out, in the years to come, like everyone collectively in all cultures, background came together to make Rhode Island the one of the food capitals of the nation.
Right.
We've worked hard to make that, to build that, and it took all communities to do that. And I have not really seen that, maybe besides California, that's a whole nother,
Yeah, I think right, like LA or New York maybe, but outside of that, we really have excelled at that.
Yeah, it's very robust up here because folks from the DMV area would come up here, especially in the West African community, to shop to bring home. They're like, it's cheaper, it's fresh, prime example, right up the street, Massachusetts. A lot of West Africans come here to the markets. They
That's
come
great.
here to buy, like not just the ingredients that they have. I know they have Haynes Market and the public markets and smaller markets, but they really love the offerings that we have here. I spoke to many of them in my position at Farm Fresh. Like, no matter if they went to different parts of Rhode Island, they could always find something, and buy in bulk. So,
That's fantastic. That's really great to hear. And I mean, I'm not, not surprised by it at all, but it's nice to hear across the way. So we've talked about the farming aspect of it there, but like I said, when I first met you, I think your email, it's popping into my head. Wasn't it Chef G at Farm Fresh? Yeah. So you are a chef. You professionally for many years. Do you do any professional cooking anymore, or is it now kind of just for yourself?
No, I don't. Not right now, because I'm focused on all these other things. At home, I'm teaching my daughter. Like right now, she has her first apple pie ever in the oven, and I'm just like,
Fantastic.
please check the oven. So I taught her how to make the dough and the filling, and she's so excited. So I do stuff like that at home. And then in the past couple of years, I've been working with other groups to be like a chef mentor for kids in the community, just teaching them how to make basic things at home, because you never know what one child's household is like. So I've done that for a couple of years, and that's been great. It was all high school students. Most of them attend high school in Providence, so that was cool.
I've been in that CTE building on next to Classical there.
Yeah,
It's an impressive facility.
Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful.
I had a chance to tour that a couple times and work with the baking program there once.
Yeah.
And very impressive. I mean, there's other great CTs around the state. I know Davies.
Yeah.
Davies has got I've seen their group several times now over the years. Obviously they graduate out and move on, but always a very impressive group at Davies.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think that teaching aspect of it is vital. So it's great to hear that you're doing that. And I mean, I say cooking professionally, you can pop back into it anytime you want. That's how it is.
I definitely I love it. I definitely love it. I think for me and the things that I'm interested in now, and in having a family, I'm like, okay, gee, you can't work in a restaurant 60 hours a week. Like you just can't, even though inside of me, the little bug is like, you can do it because you love it so much, but it's not my reality right now. So.
Yeah. And how old is your daughter now?
My daughter's 12. I also raised my youngest sister, who is 15. And
see many pictures of you and your younger sister.
Yes, and then I have my beautiful bonus children. One is also 12, and the last one's 5. So
there's a lot of teaching there to be done.
Yeah. Eli loves to cook. He surprised me. Like every time we're doing anything else, he's not interested. It tells us. But when it comes to cooking, he's like grabbing like the step stool. He wants to do everything. So I'm like, okay, somebody is like, we have hope.
Is there something in particular he likes to make, or?
No, he just likes to put his hands, because food comes with different textures, smells, and tastes. So I think that fits a 5-year-old boy.
Sure. Right.
He puts his hand in something and does, so he's just enjoys all of that. So
that's great to hear. That's really nice. Are there particular things that you really like to make?
I'm finding that I love very, very, very simple dishes. And I think that reflects to the rest of the restaurants I support or go to, or just things I make at home, or when I did have a small plot, the things I would grow. I love simple dishes I can't even think of one, but something that has probably 5 ingredients or less to make, with a bunch of flavor.
Well, I was going to say, especially in these current times, it's easier to make something like that too. So when you're cooking every single day of your life, 3 times a day. Yeah. No, I do all the cooking at home, so I and it's like 10 a.m. and the girls, what are we having for dinner?
Right. It's we just saw the sun,
I don't know yet. I'll figure it out. But yeah, I can see what you mean by 5 ingredients and make it, and here you go. And yeah, that's a smart way to cook sometimes. There's always the time to do elaborate things as well, but
right.
Now may not be that that point.
Yep.
So I mean, How have you been doing with all of this with the pandemic and now the unfortunate situation that's been, I don't even know how to describe it.
I know. 2020 have been a bust.
Yeah.
I feel like everything about it so far has really sucked. I'm just glad that we all are healthy and still alive and are able to be with our families, but it's really been rough. Like starting with the pandemic, I think all of us can relate to this where you're at work or you're working on a project and everyone's moving so freely and you don't even think about like how much human interactions are so important until they tell you you can't do it. Like, and then you have to wear a mask and protect yourself, protect your family, which I totally understand. But then everything shut down so suddenly. And then you're in quarantine and you're stuck in your home. And that was hard emotionally, I think, not only for our family, but other families that we know really well. Then we're trying to find new ways to like have that human interaction.
Yeah.
And then if you're a parent and you have to do virtual learning, that was a little hard. But I will say the teachers have been outstanding. And I, as a parent, try to support the teacher because they're also parents trying to juggle all of that as well.
Right.
So I think the first couple of weeks was very hard because when I'm at work, you're at school, so we have 8 hours where we're not together.
True.
And then now we're all just with each other all day, every day, which was great. We learned so much about each other, but then like there was a lot that we didn't know about each other and we had to figure it out. And then fast forward, as we're trying to deal with that as a nation, we have all this other stuff with, Black men and women being killed, but not just Black men and women, because now all these other stories are coming out. And, there's the majority has been Black men and women.
Yeah.
Then brown men, mostly men, haven't heard much of when I say brown, meaning Latino, Latina, and then very few white men or women that has been not killed, but attacked by our police officers.
Yeah.
And I'm going in that hierarchy because, yes, the majority is Black men and women, and it's happening on a stage. And it's happening on a stage where right now we're in a pandemic, so all we can do is watch TV, and we're seeing it right in front of our eyes. And now that people are protesting and marching and vocalizing certain things, and you're reading certain poster boards, you're starting to see that, yes, the majority is happening in the Black community, but it's also happening in the brown community. And then there's a percentage that's even happening in certain white communities. And those communities, when you look at the underlining measures of it, is social, the economic piece.
Absolutely, economic base. Yeah, no, it's a huge. I think, obviously it's hard to generalize, but it's like, of all the things that unfortunately doesn't pay attention to race, it's economics. It doesn't, yeah, sure, there are certain populations that are worse off economically than others, but economics doesn't care.
It does.
Poverty doesn't care.
It doesn't care. It doesn't have a face on it. And then this draws it again. We're still in the pandemic, so we're seeing all of this happen, and then the public health aspect comes into it with the disparities, and so it just is bringing all of our flaws as a nation just to the global stance.
Yeah,
it's like that pimple that was under your skin, but now there's like 17 of them and you don't know how to stop it. And it makes you feel or look very
unfortunately ugly. A great analogy. Wow, yeah. I haven't heard that one, but that fits. It works.
Yeah, and now we're trying to like use all these products to cover it up, where the real cure is like, what are you putting in your body? How can you treat whatever is happening on the inside, because it's going to reflect on the outside.
Right.
So that's what we're dealing with. I think we're heading to a boiling point in this country. I don't think we're at the boiling point yet. I think we're heading. Yeah, because if you look at history, with the civil rights movement, or it just again, studying political science and war, and then my parents coming from West Africa, which Liberia had a civil war, Ghana, we've seen this all plenty of times or heard about it a lot, way more, and this is leading to the boiling point. But the beauty about this space that we're in right now, we can change direction.
I hope so.
We can change direction. If folks continue to peacefully protest as a group of all cultures to support Black lives, because no one culture life can matter if another's doesn't.
Exactly. Right. And see that, and that's the thing that I'm not, I'm almost 50, and to me, it's like I don't comprehend it to some degree, because it's like, well, why would this 25, 30-year-old police officer think that way? To me, it's like, I don't, what caused that to happen to that person in their upbringing and their life, and how do you stop that? I mean, what is that? Because obviously, I don't, with my girls or any, we're not overtly telling them anything, but it's like, what are they seeing? What are we not, what are we missing that we need to make sure is out there to get people to understand that?
So a lot of it, because now, in 50 years or so ago, it was more overt.
Yeah.
That type of racism, right? But now it's systematic racism, and it's just the economic piece plays a huge part in the systematic racism that happens. And it's funny because we live in a state that overtly racism, when I say once in a blue moon, it's once in a blue moon, depending on what, who you catch that day. It doesn't happen much where if you go to Georgia or Mississippi or something like that.
I think that's it. I think we're not exposed to that here in the same way.
But
I'm not saying it's not here. I'm just saying I don't think it's overt like that.
Right. It's not overt, but the systematic racism up here in the New England area is, it's way stronger than it is in the South. Right. Because in the South, depending on what community you go to, they would just outright tell you, I don't like you, you don't like me, whatever the case may be, and you keep it going. But up here, there's a lot of, and it's not, these are things that were grandfathered in. So I'm not saying that people are up here now just creating all these new systems.
Yeah, no. I agree. But it's just it's the way of life in the Northeast and New England for 150 years. I mean, it's just unfortunate.
Right. And so it's one of those things that's like, if it's not broken, don't fix it. But it needs a lot of fixing because, I don't know how much people are in tune with who lives in Rhode Island, but I know for our Black community, we've once had a very robust Black community here in Rhode Island, and throughout the years, folks have been leaving the state for majority that reason. It's been hard to push certain things, and then with that being said, so that our community has become smaller and smaller and smaller. And then now, with our sisters and brothers in the Latino community, also facing a lot of the same systematic issues. And they're sticking together to do that, because I feel like with us in the Black community, there's other states we can go to really quick, DC, Atlanta, Texas, and find a larger Black community and do exactly what we want to do, and we will be further along. And what we hear from our brothers and sisters up here, that opportunity is kind of scarce because then immigration comes into play and all of that. So moving freely is not an option for everybody in other cultures. But now I think, again, going back to this boiling point of things, people are starting to make more proactive actions and seeing how we can change whatever systematic racism that's here. I live on the west end of Providence. Right behind me is Gilbert Stewart. Okay. The school is like most Providence schools, unfortunately, are doing poor.
Yeah.
It's doing very poorly. Like it's not a secret. We've probably all read that article with the state taking over the schools and all this other stuff. You have not enough teachers that represent the community that is there. And not saying these teachers are harmful or bad, but a lot of them, because I am a product of the Providence school system, most of them cannot relate. I was very fortunate to have, I went to Allen Sean Feinstein High School that don't exist anymore. That's where the Paul Cuffey is. And I was very fortunate to have a diverse staff of teachers because Mr. Feinstein, that's what that was his school and that's what he wanted to see. Right. But it's not like that everywhere. Connecting with the student on certain levels. Now, don't get me wrong. There are other teachers that connect with the students very well, and they've gotten down and dirty and pull out their lenses and really learn about who they're teaching and the environment they're in. But then you have teachers that have been around for like 45, 50 years, stuck in their ways, live in East Greenwich and cook here 2 shits in a dam. So there's a lot of that happening. And then you have the union that plays a part of it. So now we're all stuck in this situation. And then, like I said, there's people that are in the cities of color that are moving out of the state. So you don't even have that strong support to push as much as you would probably a few years ago. I mean, like maybe 10 or so years ago. So that's a quick glimpse of what that one piece of systematic racism look like is the teachers you put in the school, the funding that is given to the school. But then funding can't come if you're in a community where a lot of folks don't own their own home. It's like all these little red tapes, and it's like, are we doing this today? Like, it's like, you really want this bone, but you got to go over there and get the strap. If you want that strap, you got to run over. It's like, no. We didn't put this here. And the folks, black, brown, white, that are here did not put this here. Right, so why?
Not, of course.
Yeah, so it's like, why are you having us do all of this? And there's people in these positions that can change that. And so that's all I think now that people are asking for. Change it. I don't know if you remember, even with the Rhode Island Food Policy Council, I know all of us have participated in some form of fashion. And I just remember, like, there was simple things like very simple things that we was trying to push and ask for. And I remember us reading some law from like 18, I don't know what, like you couldn't buy something on a Sunday, so that's why it's having an impact on the law that we were trying to change for like restaurant owners and something like that. And I was like, are you kidding me? Now you can't change the law, but you can amend the law. And it's like, that's also systematic, not racism, but like it plays like
but
what you
systematic
can do.
Problem, yeah, definitely.
Problem, yeah. So, that here in Rhode Island or in the New England area, I think that's where our focus and our strength should be in. It's not the overt. It's not, as you can see, there was 10,000 people in downtown Providence the other day, different backgrounds, different genders, different colors. It didn't matter. It's how can we use that same energy to break down some of the ancient laws that are in place.
Yeah, I think that's it. I mean, that's ancient is a good word for it. Where for better or worse, our system of government can be very good for people, but it also can't be. I mean, that's just the nature of the system of government. It's plus and minuses to everything of it. But because ours is also 200 something years old, there's these stuck in the past systems,
right?
I hope to, obviously want to see change, and I've worked on change, and you've worked on change over the years, and it's very slow going, but hopefully we can see more of it.
Right.
It's all we can do. Because I don't, the system isn't going to go away anytime soon.
No.
So we have to be able to change it.
Right.
Yeah, it's absolutely have to be able to change it.
And I think for those who have worked in being a part of the change, especially for the food world, again, it's smaller. So we know what it's like
Right.
to have to wait and have to keep pushing because we're working on something that has an impact on everyone because we're human.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing with this. And I just hope the momentum doesn't die. I hope that everyone here in Rhode Island that supported the peaceful protests have that same energy to keep this going as far as like joining something, starting something, or really look at policy in a way that will be impactful to the communities that have been suffering from it.
Yeah, I do get concerned about the momentum dying and things of that nature. I think in general our humanity in general, the interest in trying to make these changes obviously there and wants to move forward. I think the majority wants to move forward. Unfortunately, the minority is very loud. But then, you got to get back to, making a living, taking care of your family, and all the rest of these things. I do worry about that sometimes. I think back to the Women's March at the beginning of Trump's presidency, and
oh right, yeah,
you say right. You think, oh yeah, right. All those women with the pink hats, and
right.
but was there an effective change?
It's interesting you bring that up because after the protesting and the marching with that, right after, no. But I will say it birthed other movements.
That's a good point. That's a very good point.
It birthed other movements. I think that momentum is still going. It might not be as loud as before, but then once in a while you're watching the news, oh, this person got arrested for doing God knows what, and then you see a bunch of women still coming together to fight for change for women's rights. So that I think is still going. And I'm hoping that this has the similar impact. Like you might not be protesting every day, but the energy around it is still there. It might birth other things.
I certainly hope so. And I think the nature of our media and the social media can be helpful. Obviously it can be problematic as well. We all know that and see that. But I think the ability to share and communicate being so easy, especially with the videos and things of that nature. Obviously it's horrific to watch some of these videos, but the fact that we can get them out there and see them out there for people to see.
And it's important that we see them. For those who can stomach and watch those videos, it's important that those videos are out there, not because, we want to watch somebody die, but this is what is happening right in our nation. This is what's happening right next door to us. I think I just watched or read something where it said, the cop that killed Mr. Floyd, they both worked at the same establishment.
I just read that story this morning. Yeah, apparently they did not get along.
Okay, so it's like now is like looking deeper into some other things, and the just like Mr. Floyd, he had supposedly I can't fact check this at the moment, but he might have had some issues and small issues here and there, but so did the police officer. He had
who doesn't?
lot,
and
right.
And what is that response is not the response for anything of that nature. That's just, we can all agree upon that, and that's the crazy thing. It's like I just said that sentence. We can all agree upon that, but I don't know. Maybe not, and that's the part that disconnects for me. It's like, are there people out there that think that was okay in some way? I don't know.
Yes.
Yes. No, you're right, but it's like, how is that possible? That's an answer to anything.
And it's just fueling more hate, and the fact that the Build of America had a lot to do with certain unpleasant things that happened in the past, and it's still brewing up to this day. And then our current administration is playing into it to a certain degree.
I try not to get too over, here, but let's be honest, we could not have had a particularly worse leader than.
Oh my God.
That I can say, I can almost say that 100%. There is no way we could have had a worse guy. Unless somehow Adolf Hitler came back to life. I don't know how we could have had a worse person in charge of the country than we have at the moment.
Because it's not, you want to be straightforward, fine. You want to be who you are, fine. But when you see another human get killed, or you hear a group of people that are not treated, there's no equality or what have you, even if you don't know what to say, you have a full team of people that could tell you what to say, and it's just his because each president has a brand. There's some president's brand is this, that, and the third, and his brand has been selling hate.
Yeah.
And that's
the lack of any compassion.
Yeah, and that's not good at all, because it's just dividing. It's weird because it's you think it's dividing the nation, but then you turn around and see again these peaceful protests, and it's bringing so it's
that's my one. I try to be optimistic about things. That's my one thing, is I'm hoping that what he's doing is driving people together,
right,
in its own way. That's the only thing I can hope for, because it's astonishing, and it's astonishing. We talk about history and how these things have gone on for so long, and systemic racism and other systemic problems. But then we see these ebbs and flows. When I, for whatever reason, think of Obama, I remember the moment when he sang Amazing Grace. And it's how do you go from a high that I can't even begin to describe to a low that I can't even begin? How does that happen? That moment that Obama had was astonishing and gorgeous. And for any human, I would hope.
Right.
But then we have this other moment where it's
how did we get here?
Yeah.
How did we get here? But my father said this best to me when Trump got into office, because I was like, what happened? We would have taken anybody. He was
pretty much.
He's well, this is when America is going to face themselves. I was like, what does this mean? What are you talking about? He was like, America created Trump.
Yeah, he's right.
This is the this is the product of America.
Yeah.
Now Obama was also a product of America.
Yeah.
But America is used to not seeing their flaws, and Donald Trump is just the perfect symbol for that in all ways. And he said, because at first he was like, yeah, it's good that he's there. I was like, Dad, what are you talking about? He was like, no, trust me, it's good that he's there, because this is the flaw. You have to see your flaws. You have to see what you've created. My father loved George Bush Sr. He loved all the very presidential presidents, and he's like, but the country's so used to seeing that. They're so used to seeing perfect picture of America. And sometimes you have to pull your dirty laundry out in order to fix the deep-rooted things that are happening. And that's what Trump is here for. He was despite of his, because he's not he feels the same way we do, but he was he's being put in this position so we can see ourselves.
Yeah. It sadly makes sense. And I do have underlying faith in humanity. Obviously,
right,
I think we have to have that. So we'll get through it.
Right.
But it's just astonishing. It's just, how does that happen? But here we are.
Right, here we are, and again, it's just putting fire in everyone. Yeah, and again, I'm just going to say it's important that we see these things and hear about these cases, because I know a few folks very well. Our upbringings were different. We worked in the same places, became really good friends, but the way they've been, their upbringing, and they're white, I'm Black, and they never seen like systematic racism or overt racism or whatever, they was taught in their home to love people and be friends with everyone. And so before all of this, when we have certain discussions, it's like, gee, what are you talking about? But I've never seen it. What are you talking about? And so when something like this is on TV, I've, the same friends that I'm friends with have called and was like, I get it. Like, because sometimes it has to be in your face, because we've all have been protected to a certain limit. I might not see certain things in other community because that's not where I was raised. That's not where I was brought up. So I'm not going to see that. I just see it for face value.
Right.
But if something happens and it's in my face, I'm like, okay, so this is not only once or twice, but up to almost 11 times within this past 4 years. It's a problem. It's always been a problem.
Yeah, no, it has. I mean, that's, I'm not, so I was, I'm obviously brought up, white boy, not, I don't see these things. I lived in New York for a while and I was there. And so I remember going through, but reading about the Amadou Diallo case, the late 90s.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of my, moment where, like you described, where I would turn to my friends that I knew, Black or whatever, and we would have these discussions. And so I've kind of had this, I hate using the term woke or anything like that, but I just kind of, for myself, have had this understanding of what's going on for the last 25 years almost. I mean, I don't know how much you remember the Amadou Diallo thing. That was
like a long time ago. Yeah.
And sadly, it was a long time ago, but it's not. If you look at the grand history, it's not. 25 years is not. So to still see it, happening around me, and it's just, to me, it's like, how have we not learned this lesson yet? But sadly, it's still a process for people to learn these lessons. It's just got to be done, and that's all there is to it. I mean, people have to learn that this is reality for so many human beings.
Right. And now is the time for anyone out there that's wondering like how they can participate or keep the same energy. Now is the time. If you're not a protester, you don't have to protest. But if you're a great writer, write. If you are a great organizer, organize. For me right now, I find that my strength is in organizing, but specifically my focus have been in the Black business realm, because here in Rhode Island, again, going back to systematic racism and the way people view themselves based off of that, we are not connected as strong as we are supposed to be. And that's not because of anything particular. I think it's just like, oh, okay, you're over there, I'm over here.
Yeah,
but we have not connected in that way. So there are other amazing groups like Reba for the resources if you want to start a business. Then we have other predominantly Black organizations like the NAACP and so on. But this project is completely different. It's more or less like creating a resource statewide for anyone and everyone to view, to see, learn about, and support Black businesses. And then on the other side to this is Black businesses coming together and becoming an anchor for the Black community. Right now, I think we are at a solid 200 active, still in counting. And I, unfortunately, it took this moment for folks to kind of pull the Black businesses from everywhere to form this list, and has been awesome. But I know this project that we've been working on, we started in January of 2019. It was like pulling teeth to get people on board. And then finally, the business owners slowly but surely have been filling out the form and getting on board. The Secretary of State has been a great resource to us.
She's fantastic.
Oh my gosh. Her and Miss Melissa husband, they've just been completely amazing Sharon that works with the Treasury office with Seth, Mr. Magazina. They've just been gracious in all of the support that that we need to get this going, especially from the database aspect of it. Now we have Impact Studio that's owned by Nell Pay, that's a focus on database through Salesforce or what have you.
Great.
So it's a whole application that we're building, but it's community driven to support Black business owners and Black business owners supporting themselves and each other so the community can buy in, So that project, hopefully, we still have ways to go, but the release of it will be publicized everywhere, and we will love everyone to join us when we do. But right now we're still like cleaning up the data, reaching out, because the list that has been going around through publications or what have you are great. It gives us we compare our list to see if they're already on it,
right.
If we connected, and half of them we haven't, which was interesting. So we've just been looking them up and calling them on the phone, old school, or knocking on the door, old school, grassroots, meeting them where they are, not making it join this thing and I don't know you from Paul meeting Adam. No, we have to connect and we have to discuss why this is important.
Yeah.
And so far it's been amazing.
I mean, yeah, you've got to do that work. And even if it's, there's mistakes you're going to be made along the way,
right?
Whatever, you got to do it. You got to do it. You got to try and move forward on it. So yeah, I'll be happy to, share that, when it's ready. Is there a website or anything yet, or
no?
Okay. All right. Well, nope. When there is, I'll link it all up. I'll be happy to share. Yeah.
No, we just started the development phase. Even though we're still doing the collection of data, but we just started the development phase with the wireframe and the features that we want to see on it based on what the business owners have shared with us and based on what we've been researching through other apps, like business apps, just across the board. Mm-hmm. So that's the phase we're at now.
Yeah. And it's not, for anyone out there who, setting the businesses they work with and things of that nature, it's not hard to make these changes. It's not hard to find these businesses. When I started doing some of the work, I would do events, and to do an event with all women chefs that I do, it wasn't hard.
Yeah,
to do. It just took a little bit.
Right.
It was just it was like, okay, we can do this. And I think that's it. I think you just sometimes have to just think about, when I need something from a farm, I turn to my friend Anne Marie, and we work together. But this certainly wouldn't be hard for me, for you or anyone else who owns a farm, to do things of that nature. That's kind of the beauty of Rhode Island.
Right, so
it's
small.
Not hard. We can do that.
I'll tell Anne Marie hello. I miss her.
I will. I'll see her on Sunday when our farmers market starts. She's a hoot as always. Yeah, she's the same old Anne Marie. Well, I will tell her that. Yeah. So we've been talking about an hour now, which is wonderful. I love it. I really enjoyed this conversation. I end each of my interviews with this kind of a little bit lighter than what we were discussing. Questionnaire, and I'd love to just stream of consciousness from you here on these questions. What is your favorite word?
What is my favorite word right now?
No. Your favorite word is no.
If you hear my daughter in the back, it's no.
Oh, is she 12-year-old like my 12-year-old? Do you get yelled at regularly?
Yes, and she's.
It's not like brutal or anything. It's just like this weird mood shift. It's like, oh, okay.
What's it actually? What do you want us to do with the pie? And can we have some?
Wait until I'm done. In 5 minutes. Thank you.
I'm starving.
Okay. Sorry about that. I would say I don't know what my favorite word is.
All right. Okay.
I was like, I'm thinking about it.
You have a least favorite word?
No.
Okay. How about what turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
People.
Nice. And how about what turns you off?
People.
Makes sense. All right. What is your favorite curse word?
F you.
Yeah.
That flows off my mouth way too.
What sound or noise do you love?
I like drums. Yeah, like
cool.
I'm big on the drums, and I always look for the drum player in the band. Like I love drums. So.
What sound or noise do you hate?
Screech, like almost when someone's like scratching.
What is your favorite ingredient or flavor?
Salt.
What's your least favorite ingredient?
I haven't came across something I didn't like yet.
Great. I like that. I like that. No, I like that because I think that's the thing people forget sometimes. With food or any creative endeavor is there's always more to learn. So yeah.
Right.
Yeah. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt? What haven't you tried yet, Georgina? Gee.
No, I'm like, well, I mean, everything has been food related, and I don't think I would. Honestly, it has to be probably something around, again, like I was saying earlier, I went into political science because I wanted to be a diplomat. So I think I still have that. If I could do something else, it would be that, speaking to people, negotiating, traveling. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. What profession would you not like to do?
Work in the hospital. That's a big job.
Yeah.
And I take my hat off and say thank you to every healthcare worker in the world.
Yeah, especially right now. I mean, as it wasn't big job already.
Right.
Yeah. It's astonishing. Yeah. And then, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
It's about time. There's so much we need to do up here.
You could fix down here, fix up there.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, Georgina, thank you so much for your time today. I really, really appreciated this. This is a great conversation. I really enjoyed it.
Yes, likewise. Thank you for having me on. Great to see you again.
Yeah, nice to see you. Even over this, it's.
I know. I hope I run into you physically.
We will. I'm sure we will.
Okay.
It's again the nature of our wonderful community and our wonderful state.
Right.
Great talking with you. Take care. Thank you.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.